Ciao, sveiki, bonjour, busy linguist, and welcome back to my channel. So something I wanted to clarify for all you language learners out there is this little myth that so many people seem to believe. And it's actually quite surprising that it stops a lot of people actually from even starting to learn a language. And what this myth is, and I want you to scratch it directly out of your head, is the belief that children are better at language learning than adults. Why do people believe this? Well, it's sort of simple actually when you think about it, because as you will see, or as you would actually know from your own childhood, that we've all picked up at least one language. If you grew up bilingual or trilingual, or who knows, even with 7 languages being spoken around you, then you had a little bit of luck and probably picked these up quite easily. But for those of you who are adults or are beginning to learn a language as adults, it's quite easy to get caught up in this thought that, oh, it's so hard, it's probably just because I'm an adult. So why do people think this even? Basically, whilst it is true that children have a sort of more of an advantage in the sense that they can mimic sounds and pick up languages more naturally because they're surrounded by them, you actually have an advantage as an adult in the fact that you've already picked up a language. Now, think about this logically. You look at the level that a child speaks at, and it's very basic stuff. Sentences aren't, they're not eloquent. They're not formed with lots of difficult words. They're basically quite practical. Children are able to express themselves in a very simplified way. And even if I think about this for myself, the amount of time it took me to pick up English to a level where I could say I am fluent, aka growing up in Australia and speaking as a native speaker, took at least 12 years, or maybe 10 even. But where I got to a point where I could write essays, where I could write letters and messages and just anything at a sort of advanced level, it took a lot of time. And I built it up very slowly, as we all do when we go to school and we learn a language in that way. However, when I compare my language learning journey and how long it took me to learn French and German and Spanish, I got up to the same level that I had in English in about 4 to 5 years. And that's significantly a shorter amount of time. So the other thing is that children don't really have a choice when they learn a language. And as an adult, you have so many different ways of being able to pick up the language. Now, what I mean by this is because you already have this previous experience, you basically already have a pattern or background to follow when you're learning another language or a third language or even ones after that, in the sense that you can actually pick what you want to learn, you have a purpose behind your learning, and you've got a really, really good ground base to start off from. Whereas children, it takes them a lot longer. And basically, in saying that, there's not really anyone who's at more of an advantage. If there was, actually, I would say it's an adult in terms of learning. And the only thing is, however, where adults fall into this frustration trap is the fact that they compare or try to directly translate from the target language into their native language. And the other thing is, when it comes to pronunciation, okay, that's where adults might have a little bit of a disadvantage, because the later that you start picking up this language, the more your mouth is basically used to the movements from your native tongue. But however, it's not impossible. And actually the biggest roadblock stopping people from learning a language isn't this belief of, oh, I'm an adult, so I can't learn a language. It's actually that little voice in your head telling you why you can't do it. That's always the reason. It's not these excuses like, yes, like this myth or any other myth that you don't have time, that it's too expensive. At the end of the day, it's all up to you. And if you believe that you can learn the language, if you're ready to put in the effort, and if you scratch out all of these myths, then you will be successful. Just have some patience, some motivation, and keep putting in effort consistently. So I hope that clarified that myth for you. I can also link a few links in the bottom in the description box where you can find out a little bit more on this myth. I found it super interesting and even believed this myself. And so yeah, especially to all of you learning another second, third, or even 10th language, good on you, because that's exactly the right mindset you need to have, that anything is possible and that you can learn every single language, any language that you want to, if the will is there and if you are willing to put in the effort. So that's all for me today. Bis dann, bis zum nächsten Mal. See you all next time. Today I'm going to share